Hello, hello, and welcome to Decaf, a production of the Beacon Center of Tennessee. Taylor and Mark are back with you for another exciting episode, the first one since the 2024 election, which we will certainly get into our takeaways from that. But how you doing, Mark?
I'm doing well. Excited for Christmas. It's December. A lot of good stuff going on, and me and you are both excited for the college football playoffs. So,
Which
a
we
lot
will
to talk about.
also talk about. And I'm unashamed in how excited I am to get in, even though we don't necessarily deserve it. But we'll get around to that. The first thing, though, that we should talk about is the news that has swept the nation and has left the women on The View trying to tread water and not doing a very good job of it, which is President Biden's pardon of his son, Hunter. You know, it's really interesting how you can go from, oh, he did nothing wrong, this is a big nothing burger, to here's a big old pardon for anything you could have done falling between the dates of this time and this time, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but wasn't all the like laptop stuff like 2 years into what the pardon covers? And so there's like 2 years of, well, what was he doing there? Like, we went from no one is above the law to way to go, President Biden. You really did it. Like, people are cheering for him. I don't know. I go from feeling like, well, of course, like, who cares, to, are you kidding me? I don't know. Where do you land?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest issue from my perspective is that he just absolutely bald-faced lied to the American people. I mean, he lied. He said, I am not going to pardon him. I'm not going to get involved. And that is absolute, he lied to everybody. And apparently this has been going on for 3 or 4 months. So it was an intentional lie to the American people to help, at the time, him get reelected. But, ultimately ended up being, to get Harris elected. It's really disgusting. And it's not even the pardon thing. I mean, people pardon family members. They pardon people they maybe shouldn't. I mean, Trump did that. I mean, a lot of people in history have done that. And ultimately, but he's talking about how he basically talks about how the Justice Department's great. Everything's great. All these Republican people saying that it's rigged are lying. And then in his pardon, he basically said the same thing. He said, oh, it's rigged. And if it was anybody else, it wouldn't have happened. It's like, it's your Justice Department. Mm-hmm. And all the things that you said, oh, the Republicans are being insane about that. You're saying you're using your exact talking points about your son for the Justice Department that you hired. So it's really discouraging. I think his legacy already is tarnished. I just saw a poll today that showed he's the worst, that he's voted as the worst president of all time in a new poll by J&L Partners ever.
Whoa.
I think there's a little recency bias there, but
yeah,
I think it really the people who said he was lying, who defended him all these times, they have a lot to answer for, because also every big Democratic politician kept trying to say, oh, look how this guy's great. Look at Trump trying to do all these things, get rid of the Justice Department while he follows the rule of law, even when it's his son. And all of those clips came back to haunt them, as this happened. But it's disappointing. And if you're going to do it, don't lie about it. It makes you look really bad. And he comes off awful right now.
Well, that was the thing that I was going to say, is like, I kind of feel sorry for his press secretary, because she was going out there saying he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. And then he did it. And now she has to be the face of the one answering for it. Watch me quit so fast. Like, her boss made her lie to all of the White House press corps, all of the American public. And it's indefensible. Like, I couldn't do it. And also, I saw a really great tweet that this guy said, I would respect Biden a whole lot more if he was like, I lost and he's my son, I'm going to pardon him. Screw you guys. Like, don't give us some bogus excuse and this like big sweeping paragraph of why everything is wrong. Like, just tell the truth. Your team lost. You're leaving. He's your son. You're going to pardon him. Like, I would respect that a lot more than some bogus thing that they're trying to get us to buy, that this, that, and the other. Like, I'm just not buying it. You did what you wanted to do. Admit it. Whatever. But don't lie about it, and don't try to make up something that it's not. He's your son. You pardoned him. Okay. We're over it.
I mean, I guess he already lied, so you might as well double down on the lies if you're going to do it. And I know that you like conspiracy theories, so I mean, I've seen a lot of kind of saying that the reason he's doing that it's not even necessarily for his son. It's because he wants to put the Democrats in a terrible position and he wants to make them look bad. He's already out and he knows like, oh, you know what? You guys took this election from me and took, the nomination from me, and I want to put you in as bad a spot as possible because I'm leaving. So there is a lot of discussion on that too. It's not just about his son, but it's about the Democrats.
He is petty. I see a lot of TikToks about how petty he is. And I guess it was for Veterans Day, maybe. That was the holiday that was right after the election. But Jill Biden was there, and Kamala Harris and Doug Emhoff walked in, and Jill didn't even stand. She didn't shake her hand. She didn't greet her. She didn't do anything. She just basically ignored Harris walking in. So there's like a petty kind of thing, a petty war going on there. And I love being petty. My best friend Brenna calls me Petty Lapone. Like, I love pettiness. And so, like, watching it go down on a massive scale, I'm entertained. But I do, at the end of the day, like, no matter what he's trying to do, even though I'm entertained and there's another conspiracy theory that I can add to my book to bring out at dinner parties, I do still think, like, I have compassion for the people that lied on his behalf. I think that's where I come down on it ultimately, is I have so much compassion for all of the people that lied on his behalf. And now they're having to answer for all of that because he or whoever's running the show over there changed his mind. That's where I come down. It's like, don't do this to employees who believe in you and work for you and have given their voice and their name for you. Like, that's a really crappy thing to do.
Because you turn them into liars because they were taking you at your word. And that's why, and it's not just her. It's, they've gone on TV interviews and said, hey, look, they're using it as a talking point. It's like, you made them liars because they believed you. So it was a really unfortunate thing to do. And again, if you're honest about it, I think that people would actually view it a little bit differently. And the only people celebrating are the hardcore left. I think a poll that came out very recently basically said, do you think president should pardon family members? Like 71% no, 11% yes. So on the general numbers, it looks bad for him. And it kind of, I think, to some extent, there's people who voted for Trump who may not have liked him. And this type of thing is like, you know what? I'm glad I did, because these people have been lying to me and he's lied to me the whole time.
Well, there's an Instagram account and an X account called Defiant L's, like the Defiant Left. And they put tweets back to back of contradictions. And they had one by Harry Sisson. And if you don't know who Harry Sisson is, he's like this little social media Gen Z kid who's like paid by the left to promote their stuff. Anyway, he's super annoying and he's the king of contradictions. But he had tweeted like, no one is above the law. And then he tweeted, I'm so impressed with Biden and I commend him for pardoning Hunter, and Defiant L's like put that side by side. And it's like, all of these people, they're just, it's like the only people who are celebrating are the sheep. The people who just follow and have never had an original thought in their entire lives, and they're just following and they've never had a critical thought ever. And it's just confirming what we already knew, basically.
By the way, Defiant L's is like Defiant losses, not Defiant left. It's like L's as in you're taking an L.
Oh, I thought it was people on the left that were being defiant. Okay.
No, they do it for Republicans too. It's more left. Yeah.
Okay,
it's just like L's as in taking an L.
Well, you learn something new every day. But anyway, if y'all don't follow that, you definitely should. But while we're talking about this, and while we're talking about the reason that this could even come up, let's dive into the election. Boy, oh boy, did we learn some things from this election. And I think that there are some people still that learned absolutely nothing. And there are others that I hope did learn a thing or two. But at the end of the day, I can now say that, like, I wasn't surprised at all. I think that everybody wanted to think it was going to be closer than it was, but I'm pretty sure in the last Road to 270 map that I sent to you, Mark, in our little group text, I kind of called it exactly how it went down. Like,
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
You had Michigan wrong?
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
You can pull it up.
I will. I do not think that that's correct. But
I'm almost positive. I don't remember now, but I called it. Of
course not.
I called it pretty. If I didn't call it exactly right, I called it pretty darn close. But all's to say, I couldn't have been less surprised. Like, I fell asleep before the results were even in. Like, I just, based on social media. And I think that that was like a big takeaway for me. And Elon has been talking about that a lot. And a lot of people on X have been talking about that is if you were paying attention to social media, you're not surprised. And if you were paying attention to the mainstream media, you were surprised. And that to me was like a huge takeaway. This whole cycle was a referendum on mainstream media, I think. But Mark, what do you think?
Well, I think there's a few things to think about, and this is, Trump by all, he won big, but if you look at the polls, of course he won big. If you move that, 2 points or 2.5 points in every swing state, he loses. So it wasn't this huge, absolute blowout in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But when a Republican wins the popular vote, that's a big deal because that is kind of the electoral college in a lot of ways favors them while the popular vote favors the Democrats. So for him to win that, was a big deal. And, and he actually ran, I have never said this about him before. He ran a really good disciplined campaign. I have a different takeaway. It seems like most people are blaming Biden for this. They're saying it's Biden's fault, all that stuff. And Biden, it's certainly partially his fault.
Sure.
But I have not heard enough. And I think that the problem, in my opinion, was Kamala Harris. I think she was a horrendous candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that her advisors and the people around her, this idea that she could just run the clock out, not say anything real about policy, not answer questions, just kind of say that, oh, every position I had 4 years ago that changed, there's no reason for it. I'm just, we're just going to ignore that. Like, they basically said, the American people are dumb and we cannot answer anything and win. And I think that was a huge, huge issue. Mm-hmm. Also, for whatever reason, putting Liz Cheney in Michigan to campaign for is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. But it was a poorly run campaign. And I think Biden would have also lost. And maybe she performed a little better. But if they would have had an open primary, they still could have won. If they would have had a better candidate than her, she's a horrible candidate. Like, there's no doubt she will never be a candidate again. She is awful.
Well, I think, and you might disagree with me, but I think that your takeaway can fold into my takeaway because it was clear that so many talking heads in the mainstream media wanted us to believe that she was better than she was.
For sure.
And that's where they lost me completely is you went from saying like she was Veep. She went from being Veep, Selena Meyer, to this like lauded, she's a perfect political candidate from really low approval ratings to she is our next queen. And everyone was trying to convince and gaslight the American public that this was true. And it backfired on them. Like, people don't appreciate that. Like, I don't know if you've been watching Scott Jennings, but I think it was the night after the election, Scott Jennings went on CNN and he was like, are you people kidding me? We have been sitting here for weeks and months and years talking about absolutely everything but the economy. And that's what people care about. Like, are y'all kidding me? And then she gets out there and she doesn't say anything about it. She has Beyonce come out and J-Lo comes out and cries for her. And Megan Thee Stallion comes out and twerks for her. And Usher comes out and leads the way for her. And like all of these things. But no one's talking about the economy. And she's saying that the economy is working great and Bidenomics is working. And it's the same stump speech at every single rally. And people saw through it. Like, however you view social media, in my view, flip-flops day to day, however you view it, people are always watching and everything stays on the record. And you can't be like sneaky and only put out one statement or this statement like you could during the Reagan years or the Bush years or whatever, when they would like make a speech and that was their speech. The news cycle changes like every 5 minutes. People are talking about something new every 5 minutes on social media. So you can't regurgitate the same speech every single rally you go to, because people are going to be like, wait, she's not saying anything new. She's actually not saying anything at all. And people are going to analyze it. And I think that they ran what they thought was a really modern campaign, but it was actually a really antiquated campaign. And it completely backfired. And, one would think that with all the Gen Zers and the brat summer and all this stuff, it was like the Wizard of Oz. It was like this big facade of, we are cool and we are hip and we are running a modern campaign, but behind it, all it was the same canned speeches all the time and absolutely no policy priorities. And I think the American public unmasked the wizard in that sense and saw it.
And the Gen Zers too. I mean, like all these people they're supposed to appeal to. Like Trump outperformed his 2000 things by about 20 points among them. He performed in Hispanic voters, Black voters, pretty much every demographic. He did better. And like I want to. I mean, Harris ran. I got to tell you, like it is one of the worst campaigns I've ever seen. And I do think she was put in a terrible position. Like I'm not blaming her fully because Biden, his approval ratings were terrible. Mm-hmm. The economy wasn't good. He can't put together a sentence. There's a lot of issues. She came in halfway through, but. I agree with you. The way that like the media, especially Time Magazine, they're talking about how she needs to be replaced on the VP ticket for him to win. To say, oh, this is the next, this is the next great hope, the great hope for the Democrats. I know she's so great and she's so perfect, and I guess we didn't realize it before. But I do also want to say I have to give credit to President Trump and the campaign he ran. The McDonald's thing was genius. He had all
the garbage truck,
going back to Butler. I mean, he ran a really good campaign. And, I just remember him. I felt like in 2016 and 2020, it's like every day I'm like, well, okay, what offensive thing did he say today? He did much better at not being offensive this election. He kind of kept it in. He kind of focused more on there. And, he had a pretty disastrous debate. I thought he was terrible at the debate. But, his actual campaign and his stump speech and things like that went well. So I give him credit too. It's not just the Democrats messed it up. I mean, he did well, and he ran above almost every Republican candidate. So you have to give him credit. It's like not only did he win, he ran 2-3 points above most of the Senate candidates.
No, I know. And I saw a cartoon online that some cartoonist just drew. And I think that what happened in the Trump campaign this time was he became the candidate of the fed up people. So I saw a cartoon. It was like 4 little panels, and it was Tulsi making a recommendation and getting punched in the face by a donkey. And then it was RFK making a recommendation and getting punched in the face by a donkey. Elon making a recommendation and getting punched in the face by a donkey. And then all of them had their backs turned on the donkey toward the elephant. And the donkey was like, hey, wait, where did you guys all go? It became this, we are so fed up with what's happening here. We're going to join the alternative and we're going to modernize. We're bringing our solutions to our alternative. And it's been kind of cool to watch, like in our political science classes. Were you a political science major, Mark? I don't remember.
No.
Okay. I was. And you would take these classes and you would talk about party realignments and how there's been all these party realignments all throughout history. And I think we're living in one right now. I don't know if it's a full realignment, but I think it's a reckoning for both parties. And we won't know where it ends up or how it ends up until 20, 30 years from now when we're looking back on it in textbooks. But I think we're living through a time right now that the textbooks will talk about. And it's like kind of cool to live through history. I don't know. On the one hand, I'm sick of living through historical events. On the other hand, I'm like, the nerd in me is like, oh, this time's going to be in a textbook and we're living through it. Mark, I still think if they put us in there, we'd have that place run like ship shape just like that. We'd turn some things around. That's for sure.
That's why we wouldn't get elected, but
yeah, exactly. Speaking of things that we would turn around and put in ship shape, I don't know that I would change a thing, but put Mark on the college football playoff committee, and Alabama will never see the light of day. Listen, I am an Alabama apologist. Okay, I always will be. It's part of my DNA. It's who I am. I cannot be unbiased. And I'm willing to admit that. And the first step to recovery is admitting that you have a problem. I do have a problem. Do I want to recover from it? I'm not sure. But Alabama has had a miserable season. But we are probably going to be in the football playoffs. And complain all you want, but this is what happens when you have a 12-team playoff. More teams get in. Now, will we get knocked out in the first round? Very, very likely. But we still have a shot, as well as a lot of other teams. I have to give a shout out to Michigan for shutting up Ohio State last Saturday. It was a beautiful thing to behold because, boy, did they yap. So did Auburn. Okay, but Auburn's always yapping. But Ohio State was really yapping this year, and Michigan said, enough of you, sit down. But all's to say, I am fired up for a 12-team college football playoff. Like, I think this is going to be really, really fun.
Yeah, I need to really hammer you for one thing you said. This is what happens when you have a 12-team playoff is what you said. This is what happened when we had a 14 playoff last year. Alabama still snuck in when they didn't deserve it. It doesn't matter what the number is. They will always find it. But no, I mean, this has always been the issue. And I agree that 12-team playoff is better because at least you have more teams in there. And if you're arguing, I will say none of those teams in that 12 spot are super deserving. And it looks like, there's about a 90% chance that Alabama's going to be in. I mean, there's no doubt Miami should be in over them, right? They have one less loss. They have the same strength of schedule. They didn't lose to Oklahoma by 21, which is a horrible team. They didn't go and lose to almost, any decent team they played. I mean, Alabama's one decent win. And I think we've seen this is not the same Georgia team that win, which they should have lost also if Georgia had played before the fourth quarter. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. Alabama it should not belong there. I would actually love to see them in that, because they're going to probably end up being the 11 seed based on how things work if they get in. And I would just love to see a team like Notre Dame just smash them in the first round, because
as you wear a Notre Dame hat. Don't talk to me about bias with your Notre Dame hat. Oh,
no. Oh, no, I'm just saying a team like Notre Dame. I mean, I'm just saying, the team that only has one loss, who's beat a bunch of ranked teams, but not even them. It could be a team, anybody in that 6th seed. I'd love to see a team like Penn State kill them, even SMU. It doesn't matter. Alabama does not deserve to be there. And at some point, we have to stop this. They are way less deserving than so many other teams. But thankfully, like you said, at least there's a 12-team playoff. And truly, and I bet on Alabama like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago after they lost. And I'm like, well, the committee doesn't care about fairness. And they're going to put them in anyway. So I'll take them at 50-1 because I know the committee's going to let them in no matter what their resume says. With that being said, I think they have zero chance of winning it all. And that's why a 12-team playoff is good. I was still much more offended at what happened last year, putting you in over an undefeated team. But like you said, Alabama's going to get in no matter what it is. And there's, even funny memes. It doesn't matter how many teams Alabama's going to get in it. If they had 8-4, they'd let them in. It doesn't matter. They have this huge bias and it's not fair. But I'm really looking forward to the playoff. There is a chance. I'm really cheering hard for Clemson, because if Clemson wins, there is a chance Alabama is left out for SMU, and that's the only reason I want them to win.
My haters are my motivators, Mark. I've got this defiant streak in me that if someone feels a certain way, I'm going to go the opposite of that so hard. So like your anger is like fueling my fire.
Yeah. But I think it's just so interesting, because you always say like, oh, you said your last name because you're so much for justice. You're not. You are just like no, I mean, you're essentially one of those like, oh, you're a NIMBY, because when it's your property, you change all your views. That's what you are. You're a NIMBY of college football. You might say, okay, oh, I want all these things, but it's the team I like, so I'm going to get rid of everything I believe. There is even Dave Portnoy, he bet $1 million in Alabama to win that championship. He's like, I bet all this money on them. They do not deserve to be there. If you can't have a fair point on this, then nobody should take your opinion seriously on anything, because on college football, because you obviously are saying I'm willing to overlook fairness because it's a team I like. So anything else college football related, I don't care what you have to say.
Okay, I'm very willing to take that hit for college football, but calling me a NIMBY, that's below the belt. That's a low blow.
No, you're a NIMBY of college football. That's what you are. You're a college football NIMBY.
It's offensive to call me a NIMBY. I don't like that terminology. Think of something different. But I admit that I have bias.
Be consistent. No. You can say, I like Alabama. I want them to win, but they clearly don't deserve to be there. That would be you saying, I want them to win, but I'm still going to be fair about it. I mean, that's the most obvious thing.
I admit it. I know that I love the Alabama bias. Like, I know that we're not good, and I know that we're going to get knocked out, and I know that probably other teams do deserve to be there, but I'm not going to deny that I love the pro-Alabama bias. Like, I ride that wave, honey. Roll Tide.
But can you at least acknowledge they do not deserve to be in the playoff, and they did not deserve to be in the playoff last year?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Oklahoma loss, we were in California with my husband's family, and they were like hiding the TV from me. They sat me with my back toward the TV for dinner so that I would not see what was going on, because it was so ugly. It was terrible. This has been an embarrassing season, and I know it's a rebuilding year, and everybody's like, oh, Alabama sucks. It's like, okay, well, we've sucked before, like my entire childhood. So I know what it's like. I know what it feels like. I will survive. But it's been a down year. I know that we probably don't deserve to be in the playoff, but do I love it for our seniors that we are? Absolutely. Do I love that there is a pro-Alabama bias? Absolutely. And I will proudly ride that wave.
Yeah, who cares about the seniors on the teams that deserve to be and who are left out, because who actually deserved it? Like, nobody cares about them. But
they're not my boys.
Yeah,
the Alabama boys are my boys. So That's how I
Also,
feel
it's
about them.
good. It sounds like you and Jalen Milroe were on the same point at the Oklahoma game, not paying attention to what was going on. The one
I was
thing,
like,
so
yeah, me and Milrow were like checked out for that one.
neither of you guys were looking at the defenses.
Yeah, it's true.
With that being said, my prediction is this is the most wide open playoff. And even as much as I think Alabama does not deserve to be there, it doesn't mean they can't win because it's such a wide open playoff. I don't think they will. That if I had to bet, I'm taking Texas to win, but Ohio State is so talented. Notre Dame, I don't think has quite the talent, but they have been the best team in the country over the past 12 weeks. And they play together as a team, but I don't know if the talent's there. And then you have other teams like Oregon. Dustin loves them; they're undefeated. I don't know, but I'm between. If I had to bet, I'm between Texas and Ohio State to win it all. Despite that, because they're talented and they've kind of let people down. But I mean, what team other than Oregon hasn't?
Yeah, well, I mean, all the teams that you just named make me feel nauseated, but that's just showbiz,
But who
baby.
do you think's going to win though?
Unfortunately, probably Texas, and like that is a nightmare scenario for me. But it is what it is, and Alabama should have paid attention and woken up this year. And I think that this is going to be a learning experience for Kalen DeBoer. That the SEC is just a little bit different and the expectations at Alabama are a little bit different. And every team comes out wanting to beat Alabama. Like that's just how it is. Like every team plays their hardest against Alabama. And he's just going to have to learn and adapt to that because you have to play on another level if you want to beat everyone at their best.
Yeah, the SEC is different. You can see a team coming from the Big 12 and they're automatically going to win the SEC in their first year. So it's maybe not as good as the other conferences. How it's different. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, and like that is seriously that
But
does matter.
What I mean is people are rabid. Like the fans are rabid in the SEC. Like it's just I'm not going to argue with you on strength of team, strength of schedule in the SEC. I do think you're right on that, but it is different because people are rabid. Like college football is a way of life in the SEC, whereas it might not be in Washington and in the Pacific Northwest and places like that with as widespread as it is. I mean, literally Nick Saban said on College Game Day last week that when you're born, you are assigned Alabama or Auburn when you grow up in Alabama. Like it just is a different situation. And you have to agree that people do try to they come out playing their best against Alabama because beating Alabama is important. All's to say, the Alabama bias is my favorite thing in the entire world. I accept. I don't care. That's showbiz, baby. Say what you want. My haters are my motivators.
I want to say one last thing, and this is kind of a big middle finger to Nick Saban and Lane Kiffin. They have been so wrong so often. They kept talking about how Ole Miss would be undefeated if they're in the Big 12, and it's such a joke. Ole Miss is terrible. They don't deserve anything. Brett, your team's bad. And the idea that they're using this example, it's like where since 2001, the Big 12 is 10-8 versus the SEC. And they're saying, oh, they would be the first team. It's like, shut up. Ole Miss, like, say what you want about Alabama. Ole Miss definitely doesn't deserve to be in the conversation. They are horrible, and South Carolina, like they haven't beaten anybody good. They just lost to people. But I am done with this. And a lot of it, truthfully, the SEC, Big 12, this whole thing, it's coming down to this Ole Miss. Like, imagine where Ole Miss would be in the Big 12. It's like, probably the same place. They're not good. So I don't want to hear this. And Nick Saban started it, and Lane Kiffin is getting roasted on Twitter by all these other coaches. Like, you're an idiot. You did one of the worst coaching jobs I've ever seen for maybe the most talented team in the country in Ole Miss, and you've ruined it. So I don't want to hear from you. You're a joke. And honestly, if I'm Ole Miss, I'm firing him. I think Tennessee fans will love to hear that. He should be fired after what he did to that team this year. The fact they didn't make the playoffs is a disgrace, and he is a not a good coach. He's fun. He's a fun recruiter. He's fun to be around, but they have, other than Ohio State, the most expensive team in the country and not even sniffed the playoffs. And, I think that's really, really disappointing. And Ole Miss should go in a different
Down with
direction.
Joey Freshwater. I agree.
Seriously.
Before we leave, we would be remiss not to mention in our last podcast of this calendar year that this year was Beacon's 20th anniversary year. We were founded in 2024. 2004. It is 2024. We're celebrating 20 years this year. We had a beautiful event in Franklin to celebrate that. And also to celebrate it, our CEO, Justin Owen, released a mini book called Modern Davids. And it's a story of Davids that fought the Goliath, that is the government, and won. And you can get a copy of that book. We are doing a thing right now where if you donate $50, you get a copy of the book. You can donate on our website, beacontn.org/donate. It's really important. We so appreciate any donations that we get because it helps us fight for future Davids. My job as the external affairs director is that I get to go out and talk to these people and recruit our heroes who will come in and speak on their issues. Like, I get to be friends with all of these Davids that we fight for. And I've got a whole list of people that need our help fighting against government who are those modern Davids. And we're just thankful to be able to do what we do. The book is incredible. We've been sharing excerpts from it, a chapter from it every month for the last year on our blog. Go read it. Go read the stories of these folks. It's definitely not the whole book. It's a really, Justin really put his whole heart and soul into this and into telling these stories. And they really are beautiful and really moving, because these are people who put their name and their lives out there to fight against the government, because not just for their issues, but to set precedent for future issues to come. And it's really cool to be on that side. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, and I mean, you've been with Beacon for a long time. If you listen to this podcast, you probably heard the stories, or at least know about a lot of these heroes. So it's cool to see them, and you know that it's not just about Beacon; it's about the people we fight for. It's only about the people we fight for, really. So this whole idea of seeing kind of where they came from and how that we've helped them, I think it's great. And, you know, the 20th anniversary event was great. You know, we have to give a big shout out to, you know, Christina and Dylan and Taylor and Jamie. And it really, really turned out well. And, you know, I think $50 is a small price to pay for this great book and to kind of read more about that. And, you know, you're giving to a great cause. Beacon probably has one of the best ROIs you can possibly have with your money. And, you know, a $50 donation gets us, you know, really far. So we appreciate your support. We appreciate you listening. And if you want to donate,
yeah, head to our website to donate and you'll get your own copy of Modern Davids. But that's what we got for you. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of our friends and fans and people listening to us. We really appreciate you guys listening to us rant about this, that, and the other every time that we do. Mark, Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas.
This has been Decaf, a production of the Beacon Center of Tennessee. You should like and subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. We'll talk to you soon.